morning. Today we're going to relax into a rudimentary modeling class where we're going to be honing your observational skills and you're going to learn the basics of sculpting. So to do that, we're going to make a flower, and this is a flower that my Oma had in her collection, and you've also seen some roses that she had that my brother has at his home. You need to look at the strength of the piece and balance that with the delicacy of the actual flower that you are trying to produce. So what you'll notice with this one is that in the very center of the petal, the thickness is much thicker than you realize. It's actually at least 1 centimeter thick. And as you come to the edges, it's very, very fine, thin, frilly edge. So when you look at it, it looks as if the whole thing is very fine because you never see the outside and the inside at the same time. So you're going to balance out the structure of it and the delicacy that you want to get by following some very simple pointers that I will give you. So when you choose a flower that you want to emulate, you're going to look at it, observe it closely, and you want to try and catch its essence, its structure, and its detail. So if I were to look at this hibiscus flower, I need to look at how the shape of the petal springs from its base, how it curves in the center here. It's got a kind of a spine, and it's got ribs that are little veins that come out that you can actually see on both sides, but it's more textured on the outside. And then it's got this central pistil in the middle, which we might have to shorten for practical purposes or leave out, or else put it as a design in the interior lower down, or put it on against one of the petals like that. So you have to think about all those things. The other option you have is to turn your flower into a bowl. You can make it inside another bowl, like we have some of our other projects, and then it can be a bowl that you eat out of. Or it can have a smaller interior and you could put a tea light candle in it. So it's not just purely decorative. This one has been designed so that it's got a hook at the back with a bit of wire, 2 holes through the little collar, that it can hang on the wall through a nail, or else it can stand on the table just as a purely decorative item. And I've seen the most beautiful artichokes and proteas. This kind of bowl would be more useful for a protea, and this bowl would be more useful for a poppy or a rose maybe. So we'll have a look at all the different techniques that you could use. To make the ranunculus, I noticed that the petals were progressively bigger, reaching from the center outwards and opening up and folding outwards. So I made a succession of little balls that got bigger and bigger, and starting with the center, I clap my hands and fold them over each other, overlapping from the center outwards and shaping each petal as I go along. You don't need to join them with slip and scratching if you're doing this immediately. The clay is still very sticky, and if you give good pressure, the petals will stick to each other. So you just carry on with a routine and a regular rhythm of clapping, shaping, joining until you reach the outside. There's too much clay at the base of the flower after joining all the petals, so that needs to be cut off. And that will also reveal areas where there's some air trapped that you can squeeze out at this point and round off the bottom. Give it a good base to rest on while it's drying to leather hard before you join the collar on. So the collar is made of a coil that is flattened a little and then rolled with your guides on the side with cloth over and a rolling pin and shaped to fit the base of your flower. It serves a double purpose, this coil, this little pedestal. It holds all the petals together, almost like a band-aid, but it also lifts it up and presents it to the world. Actually, it also is a spot where you can put holes in to put a bit of wire so that you can put it on the wall as a decorative item as well. You see, I'm shaping it so that it's going to be higher on the one side than on the other, so it's more like a presentation bowl. Place the flower and the ring to one side until they leather hard before you can join them. For this arum lily project, I made a paper template to emulate the shape of a lily. It's very important to get your template ready so that you know what size and shape to roll your slab. And you'll notice that the slab is still quite thick, like I mentioned before, for the petals. And to get the edges nice and thin, you put a cloth over it and rub it with your fingers on both sides, and it's much easier to do this while it's still flat before you bend the clay into its final arum lily shape, because you'll get a nice neat edge. So you do the one side and then flip it over, and then you'll do the other side. So this arum lily is designed to be held up on a pole so that it can be used as a display amongst other arum lilies in a vase inside, or can be stuck in the garden. They really look quite fun and fresh that way. So to make it, I've actually stuck my pole in there. It also helps to support it while I scratch and slip the overlap, and it gives you something to press against, so that you're pressing from the inside and the outside to give the overlap a good bond, which is very important, obviously. Once you've got it well bonded, you can bend the upper edge of the lily outwards and flare it out and bend the point backwards in a natural shape. Put some clay aside for the foot ring before cutting the remaining clay into as many petals as you're going to use for your bowl. Then clap your hands and make your petals and place them firmly overlapping inside your bowl to form a flower. Here I'm using an image from the internet for the interior of the poppy, but the very best would have been if I'd had a real poppy next to me. There's nothing quite like nature and real life to help with your observation. I noticed that the petals of my poppy didn't come naturally towards the center and taper inwards as they would. So I'm carefully redrawing and recutting, not all the way through, but just so that it looks realistic, so that the petals go inwards towards the center in a more natural way. Hello, I hope you found a beautiful spot like I have to make your floral project. I'm actually sitting in front of an arum lily, but there are no flowers on it. So here's my arum, and it's dried quite nicely to leather hard. And this is the time when it's just ready to smooth it and compress the edges. These edges need to be pressed in and sharpened up so that they're strong and they don't crack later. And at this point you can smooth the whole surface so that you've got that lovely crisp, very smooth surface that you get in an arum lily. real one. So just be careful of your little point that you don't break that off. And I'm leaving a hole here so that I can put my rod in, and I can put it in a vase or in the garden. And I've scratched the inside where this stamen goes in, and I've scratched that part of it as well. I just used a bit of a porcupine quill to get in there because the fork couldn't reach, and this one too. And I've made some slip out of the same clay, and it's good to use a nice dollop of slip on both surfaces to get a good join. And push it in where you want it, up against the side here. Try and make it join as much as you can. So then try and take a bit of this other clay and drag it over the join so that the join is properly connected. If the clay is too dry to do that, you need to take a bit of wet clay, stick it on your porcupine quill, and then push it in on both sides of your stamen. See, this way you can actually reach in because you're using a long thin chopstick or porcupine quill. And Gypsy is just checking for squirrels. She says that there's no squirrels around right now, so we're safe. The minute there is a squirrel, she'll go off on the hunt. And we'll all know about it. So there's my arum lily. Put that down safely. And now I'm just going to tackle my ranunculus, this flower. It's very thick here where I've done all this bulky joining of all the petals, and I don't like to leave it like that. So I'm actually going to take it and hollow out a little bit there before I put my collar on. So I'm going to put it upside down on its fine edges on some foam rubber, and I'm going to hollow out using one of these tools. See, I couldn't do this before when it was still wet, but I can do it now. And I'm just going to hollow out to the diameter of the inside of the collar. And you won't notice it from above. And this will also deal with any air bubbles that might have happened from not pressing hard enough when we joined. So hollowing out is always a good idea with sculptures. Just be careful you don't go all the way through to your central petals. I'm not going to hollow everything, it's just to relieve the pressure and the stress, and to let the water get out in the firing. So our aim is always to never go thicker than 1 centimeter. That's the rule of thumb, because one can get explosions where the water can't get out. I think that's good enough. Now I have to check that this actually fits well, so I must decide which way I want to hang it. I think it can hang from this side. And then if you look around the edges, you can see air through it, so I've got to keep cutting here at an angle, the same angle that the flower is at, and try and make it fit. Okay, I'm happy with that. I'm going to also put a little bit of clay in this join here and inside, and that will neaten it up and make sure that it's well joined. So now I need to mark where it's going to go. and then I know where to scratch it. So there's my mark, and I can scratch all around here and scratch a bit beyond that line so that where you put the coil of clay, it's also been scratched underneath the new wet clay that you put there. This is pure white clay, and it needs to be dealt with very well. You need to join properly. It's not like the paper clay. You've got to scratch and you've got to slip and you've got to put extra clay over the joins. The reason I've got a paper clip here is that if you bend it, you can make yourself your own hollowing out tool with a paper clip, or any bit of wire actually. You don't need to have these specialist tools. Make sure it's made good contact, but be careful of bending these little petals. Okay, so my ranuncular I've finished joining, smoothing inside and outside. And so when it sits on the table, it's sitting at a slight angle so that you can present it forwards. I've left the surfaces very much just as they were when I clapped my hands. And if you look at the commercial ones online, they do the same thing. And then they put a glaze on that's a translucent colored glaze that shows up all the markings of making. And then it has a lovely crafted look to it. So I'm thinking that perhaps that's the reason why I chose this white clay, is that if you have a very translucent glaze, the color of the white shows through it and it makes it sparkle and shows up the textures nicely. So you've got two choices, like they have on the inside, they've just painted it with underglaze stains or slips. You can paint your flower, or you can wait until you bring it to me and then we'll dip it in a translucent celadon type glaze. So this is your bowl one, and you know you're going to make one of these. You've got a choice. This was my poppy. This one, I think poppies have quite a nice sort of papery look. So I'm actually going to cut across my finger marks and texture on the inside. I think I'll leave the outside like that. I would quite like to also give this one a little foot ring, like a ring around the bottom, so that it stands up a bit and looks more important. It's a sort of a pedestal. If you don't want it to rock, you can just tap it down on the table if you're not giving it a foot ring before it gets too dry. So then you just have fun with texturing the petals to make them look all papery. So I'm just going to wipe the little crumbs off with a very dryish damp sponge. Don't want to wet it up now that it's so nicely leather hard. It's supporting itself so nicely. And I don't want to rub away all my marks. But I know that these little ridges are going to pick up a translucent glaze beautifully. You can also put an underglaze stain on it once it's bisque-fired and rub it off. And then the ridges will catch more color. So that's another way of doing it, because wherever you rub off will be white and the color will stay in the grooves. So there's my little bowl and my arum and my ornamental flower. Enjoy.